Charles Simmons steps off his spacecraft onto the vibrant alien soil of Illyria, utterly unprepared for the bizarre greeting that awaits him. The human diplomat's eyes widen as an Illyrian official approaches, leading a stunningly beautiful female of their species. "Welcome to Illyria, Ambassador Simmons," the official says, gesturing to the female. "This is Tara, your mandatory pleasure pet for the duration of your stay." Charles blinks, certain he's misheard. "I'm sorry, my what?" "Your pleasure pet," the official repeats matter-of-factly. "It's an ancient Illyrian law. All visiting dignitaries must accept a pleasure pet or face imprisonment." The gravity of the situation hits Charles like a punch to the gut. Earth's economic future hinges on these trade negotiations. Refusing could jeopardize everything, potentially leaving Earth's expanding colonies without vital resources. Charles glances around, noticing other human diplomats paired with Illyrian pleasure pets. Their faces mirror his own discomfort and confusion. He swallows hard, realizing he's caught in a cultural minefield with no easy escape. "I understand," Charles manages, his mind racing. "I accept Tara as my pleasure pet." The official nods, satisfied. "Excellent. Tara will escort you to your quarters." As they walk, Tara moves closer, her alien features both familiar and exotic. "I'm here to ensure your comfort and satisfaction, Ambassador," she says, her voice sultry and eager. Charles tenses, torn between diplomatic necessity and personal ethics. He's heard rumors of previous human diplomats who refused their pleasure pets, resulting in immediate expulsion and failed negotiations. The stakes are too high to risk such an outcome. Entering his quarters, Charles faces Tara, his expression a mix of uncertainty and resolve. "Tara, I appreciate your role here, but I hope you understand that my focus must remain on the negotiations." Tara tilts her head, curious. "Of course, Ambassador, but please remember, the Illyrian government will be watching closely. Rejection of my services could be seen as a grave insult." Charles nods, understanding the precarious balance he must maintain. He must navigate this bizarre alien law while upholding his professionalism in Earth's interests. The success of the trade talks now hinges not just on his negotiation skills, but on his ability to manage this unexpected cultural challenge. As night falls on the alien world, Charles sits at his desk, Tara lounging nearby. He reviews trade documents, acutely aware of her presence and the potential diplomatic ramifications of his every action. The future of Earth's colonies and the delicate balance of interstellar relations between humans and Illyrians rest on his shoulders, all because of an ancient law he never could have anticipated. "Welcome to Illyria, Ambassador Simmons. Let the negotiations begin." Charles's eyes lingered on the trade documents before him, but his mind wandered. Tara's presence on the nearby couch was impossible to ignore, her alien form both alluring and unsettling. He cleared his throat, setting down the papers. "Tara," he began, turning to face her, "I think we need to discuss this arrangement." Tara sat up, her iridescent skin shimmering in the dim light. "Of course, Ambassador. What would you like to know?" Charles chose his words carefully. "I appreciate your role here, but I'm not entirely comfortable with the implications. In human culture, this kind of relationship is complex." Tara's expression shifted, a mix of curiosity and confusion crossing her features. "I see. Perhaps I can explain my perspective?" "I volunteered for this role, Ambassador. It's considered an honor among my people." Charles blinked, taken aback. "Volunteered? I had no idea. Why would you choose this?" Tara's eyes lit up. "To learn about human culture, of course. Your species fascinates us. This program allows for intimate cultural exchange." As they talked, Charles found himself drawn in by Tara's genuine interest in Earth and its customs. She asked thoughtful questions about human relationships, social norms, and diplomacy. Before he knew it, hours had passed, and a new understanding began to form between them. The next morning, Charles entered the negotiation chamber, Tara following close behind. Other human diplomats were already seated, their assigned pleasure pets nearby. The room hummed with tension and awkward energy. As the Illyrian trade minister began speaking, Charles found his attention divided. He tried to focus on the complex economic proposals, but Tara's presence was a constant distraction. Her subtle movements, the soft rustle of her clothing, even her alien scent kept pulling his thoughts away from the negotiations. Surprisingly, the Illyrian negotiators seemed pleased by Charles' apparent distraction. They exchanged knowing glances, nodding approvingly. During a break, the trade minister approached Charles. "Ambassador Simmons," he said, his tone warm, "we're impressed by your embracing of our customs. Perhaps we can discuss more favorable terms for your resource acquisition." Charles, caught off guard, managed a polite nod. As the negotiations resumed, he realized his unintentional display of cultural acceptance had unexpectedly tipped the scales in Earth's favor. That evening, Charles returned to his quarters to find Tara arranging dishes on a low table. The air was filled with unfamiliar, spicy aromas. "I've prepared a traditional Illyrian meal," Tara explained, gesturing for Charles to sit. "I thought it might help you understand our culture better." As they ate, Tara shared the history behind each dish, weaving in stories of Illyrian customs and traditions. Charles found himself fascinated, particularly when she explained the origins of the pleasure pet custom. "It began centuries ago," Tara said, her eyes distant with memory. "Two warring tribes sought peace. To seal their truce, they exchanged companions, ensuring both sides had a stake in maintaining harmony." Charles nodded, beginning to see the custom in a new light. "And it evolved into a diplomatic tradition?" "Exactly," Tara smiled. "It's a symbol of trust and openness between cultures." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent beep from Charles' communication device. He excused himself to read the message, his face growing grim as he scanned the contents. Earth's government had learned of the pleasure pet situation. Their orders were clear: find a way to respectfully decline without jeopardizing the negotiations. Charles felt the weight of conflicting demands settle on his shoulders. The next evening found Charles at a formal Illyrian reception, Tara by his side. The grand hall was filled with diplomats and their pleasure pets, all mingling with apparent ease. Charles noticed Illyrian officials watching closely, their eyes tracking every interaction between the visiting dignitaries and their companions. An Illyrian minister approached, his manner jovial. "Ambassador Simmons, I must say we're delighted by your enthusiasm for our customs. It bodes well for our future relations." Charles smiled tightly, acutely aware of the scrutiny. "Thank you, Minister. Your hospitality has been enlightening." As the minister moved on, hinting at potential trade concessions, Charles realized the full impact of his actions. His relationship with Tara was directly influencing the negotiations, for better or worse. Returning to their quarters after the reception, Charles felt the tension between his growing rapport with Tara and his professional obligations. Earth's demands echoed in his mind, clashing with his newfound understanding of Illyrian culture. Tara sensed his unease. "Is everything all right, Ambassador?" Charles sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated, Tara. There are expectations from my government that conflict with what's expected here." Tara tilted her head, her alien features softening with concern. "Perhaps we can find a way to bridge these expectations. Our cultures may be different, but surely we can find common ground." As Charles pondered her words, he was unaware of the storm brewing back on Earth. A group of human rights activists had caught wind of the pleasure pet custom, launching a campaign to end what they saw as an exploitative practice. Their actions threatened to throw the delicate diplomatic balance into chaos, adding yet another layer of complexity to Charles's already precarious mission. Standing by the window, gazing out at the alien cityscape, Charles felt the weight of his responsibilities pressing down on him. He had to find a way to navigate this labyrinth of cultural differences, diplomatic necessities, and personal ethics. The success of the trade negotiations, and perhaps the future of human-Illyrian relations, hung in the balance. As dawn broke over the alien cityscape, Charles found himself caught in an increasingly complex web of expectations and cultural misunderstandings. The communication device on his desk blinked incessantly, signaling yet another urgent message from Earth. With a heavy sigh, he activated the screen, bracing himself for the contents. The message was clear and direct. Earth's government demanded he find a way to diplomatically reject the pleasure pet custom without offending the Illyrians. The ethical implications of the practice had sparked heated debates back home, and pressure was mounting to distance humanity from what many viewed as an exploitative tradition. Charles glanced at Tara, who was quietly arranging flowers in a vase across the room. Her presence had become a constant in his life on Illyria, and the thought of rejecting her outright left him with a sense of unease. He knew he had to find a solution that would satisfy both Earth's demands and Illyrian customs. As he pondered his next move, a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. An Illyrian official entered, his eyes immediately darting between Charles and Tara. "Ambassador Simmons," the official said, his tone cordial but scrutinizing. "I trust you and your companion are well. The trade minister is most pleased with the progress of our negotiations." Charles nodded, acutely aware of the subtext. "Yes, we're doing well. Tara has been an excellent cultural guide." The official's eyes glinted with approval. "Excellent. We look forward to further positive developments in our talks." As the official left, Charles felt the weight of expectations pressing down on him. He needed advice from someone who understood both human and Illyrian perspectives. With a sudden spark of inspiration, he reached for his communication device. "Dr. Elena Rodriguez, this is Ambassador Simmons. I need your help." Hours later, Charles found himself in Dr. Rodriguez's office, surrounded by holographic displays of Illyrian cultural artifacts. The human cultural attaché listened intently as Charles explained his predicament. "It's a delicate situation," Dr. Rodriguez mused, her fingers dancing over a holographic interface. "But I think I have a solution that might satisfy both sides." She pulled up an image of an intricate Illyrian ceremony. "This is the Kelthora, an ancient bonding ritual. It's deeply respected in Illyrian culture and involves a public exchange of symbolic gifts and a traditional dance." Charles leaned forward, intrigued. "And this would satisfy the pleasure pet custom?" Dr. Rodriguez nodded. "It would. The ritual is seen as a profound form of cultural exchange, but it doesn't require physical intimacy. It could allow you to honor Illyrian traditions while maintaining professional boundaries." As Charles mulled over the idea, Dr. Rodriguez added, "But be warned, Ambassador. This ritual carries significant weight in Illyrian society. It's not to be undertaken lightly." Charles left Dr. Rodriguez's office with a mix of hope and trepidation. He spent the next few days preparing his proposal for the Illyrian trade delegation, all while trying to maintain the delicate balance of his relationship with Tara. When the day came to present his idea, Charles stood before the Illyrian officials, his heart pounding. "Esteemed delegates," he began, "I propose participating in the Kelthora ritual with Tara. This would allow me to fully embrace your customs while respecting the unique aspects of human culture." A murmur of surprise and appreciation rippled through the Illyrian delegation. The trade minister stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. "Ambassador Simmons, your willingness to engage in one of our most sacred traditions is unexpected and deeply appreciated. We accept your proposal." As word of the upcoming Kelthora spread, Charles found himself spending more time with Tara, preparing for the ritual. They practiced the intricate steps of the traditional dance, their movements becoming more synchronized with each passing day. During one of their practice sessions, Tara paused, her alien features softening with curiosity. "Charles," she said, using his first name for the first time, "tell me about Earth. What's it like?" Charles found himself opening up, describing Earth's diverse landscapes, its bustling cities, and the complex tapestry of human cultures. Tara listened with rapt attention, her eyes shining with fascination. "It sounds wonderful," she breathed. "I hope I can see it someday." As the day of the Kelthora approached, Charles felt a growing sense of anticipation. He had come to genuinely enjoy Tara's company, and the prospect of participating in this ancient ritual with her filled him with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The ceremony took place in a grand Illyrian temple, its soaring crystal spires catching the light of the alien sun. Charles and Tara stood before a gathering of Illyrian officials and human diplomats, the air thick with anticipation. As they exchanged symbolic gifts, Charles presenting Tara with a holographic representation of Earth, and Tara offering Charles a glowing crystal imbued with Illyrian energy, Charles felt a profound sense of connection to this alien world and its people. The traditional dance began, the hauntingly beautiful Illyrian music filling the air. As Charles and Tara moved in perfect synchronization, their eyes met, and for a moment the rest of the world seemed to fade away. In that instant, Charles realized that his feelings for Tara had grown beyond mere diplomatic necessity. The ceremony concluded to thunderous applause from both Illyrians and humans alike. As Charles and Tara stood hand in hand, he couldn't help but feel that something fundamental had shifted, not just in the negotiations, but in his own understanding of interstellar diplomacy. In the days that followed, the trade talks took a decidedly positive turn. The Illyrians, impressed by Charles's embrace of their customs, became more amenable to Earth's proposals. Charles found himself securing favorable terms for resource acquisition that exceeded even his most optimistic projections. Yet as he prepared to transmit the good news back to Earth, a nagging sense of unease gnawed at him. How would Earth's government and public react to his participation in the Kelthora? And what of his growing feelings for Tara? As if sensing his thoughts, Tara approached him, her expression uncharacteristically serious. "Charles," she said softly, "there's something you should know about the Kelthora. In our culture, it's traditionally seen as a precursor to a deeper relationship." Charles felt his heart skip a beat, the implications of her words sinking in. Before he could respond, his communication device chimed urgently. The screen flashed with an incoming transmission from Earth marked "Urgent Public Relations Crisis." With a sinking feeling, Charles realized that his mission on Illyria was just getting started. The delicate balance he had struck was about to be tested in ways he could never have anticipated. As Charles read the message, his face paled. The screen flashed with headlines from Earth, all centered around one topic: the Kelthora ritual. Human ambassador participates in alien bonding ceremony. Ethical concerns raised over Illyrian pleasure pet custom. Human rights activists demand explanation from Ambassador Simmons. Charles felt the ground shift beneath his feet. The delicate balance he had struck was crumbling, and the implications of his actions were spiraling far beyond his control. Tara's voice cut through his thoughts. "Charles? What's wrong?" He turned to her, struggling to find the right words. "It seems our participation in the Kelthora has caused quite a stir back on Earth. There are misconceptions about the nature of our relationship and the customs of your people." Tara's brow furrowed. "But surely we can explain." Their conversation was interrupted by another urgent message, this time from the Illyrian trade minister. The message was terse, requesting Charles's immediate presence at an emergency meeting. As Charles hurried through the alien corridors, he could feel the tension in the air. Illyrian officials whispered in clusters, their eyes following him with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. He entered the meeting room to find a group of stern-faced Illyrian leaders waiting for him. The trade minister spoke first, his voice tight with concern. "Ambassador Simmons, we've received disturbing reports from our intelligence sources. It seems a rival faction within our government is using your participation in the Kelthora to question your sincerity and the legitimacy of our negotiations." Charles felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. He had to act fast to salvage the situation. Taking a deep breath, he addressed the room. "Esteemed colleagues, I believe I have a solution that could address the concerns on both our worlds." All eyes turned to him as he outlined his proposal for a cultural exchange program. He spoke of fostering understanding between their species, of breaking down barriers and misconceptions. As he described his idea to have Tara become Earth's first Illyrian cultural ambassador, he saw a glimmer of interest in the eyes of the Illyrian officials. "This program would allow Tara to visit Earth and learn about human customs firsthand," Charles explained. "It would demonstrate our commitment to mutual understanding and respect." The trade minister leaned forward, intrigued. "And you would personally oversee this visit?" Charles nodded. "Yes, as Tara's official guide and protector. Our participation in the Kelthora makes me uniquely qualified for this role." After hours of intense discussion and negotiation, The Illyrian government cautiously agreed to the proposal. As Charles left the meeting, he felt a mix of relief and apprehension. He had bought some time, but the real challenges were just beginning. Over the next few days, Charles and Tara threw themselves into preparations for their Earth trip. As they worked side by side, Charles found himself drawn deeper into Tara's world. They spent long hours discussing their respective cultures, sharing personal stories, and learning more about each other. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Charles's quarters, watching the alien sunset paint the sky in hues of purple and green, Tara turned to him with a vulnerable expression. "Charles, I'm nervous about this trip. Your world seems so different, so alien to me." Charles felt a surge of protectiveness. He reached out and took her hand, marveling at the way her iridescent skin shimmered in the fading light. "I'll be with you every step of the way, Tara. I promise." The night before their departure, Charles was awakened by a commotion outside his quarters. He barely had time to register the sound of breaking glass before Tara burst into his room, her eyes wild with urgency. "Charles, get down!" she shouted, launching herself towards him. In a blur of motion, Tara tackled Charles to the ground just as a projectile whizzed over their heads, embedding itself in the wall behind them. With a grace that belied her alien physiology, Tara sprang to her feet, assuming a defensive stance. Two masked figures burst into the room, wielding strange, pulsing weapons. Tara moved with incredible speed, her body flowing like liquid as she engaged the attackers. Charles watched in awe as she disarmed one assailant with a series of precise strikes, then used the attacker's own momentum to throw him into his companion. The skirmish was over in seconds. As security forces stormed the room, Tara helped Charles to his feet, her touch lingering longer than necessary. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. Charles nodded, still processing what had just happened. "You saved my life," he said, his voice filled with wonder and gratitude. As the security team secured the area and began their investigation, Charles and Tara sat huddled together, the adrenaline slowly fading from their systems. It was clear that the stakes had just been raised significantly. The assassination attempt had brought them closer together, but it had also highlighted the very real dangers they faced. With the rising of Illyria's alien sun, Charles and Tara boarded the ship that would take them to Earth. As they strapped themselves in, Charles couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. They were embarking on a journey that would not only shape their personal relationship, but could potentially redefine human-Illyrian relations for generations to come. As the ship lifted off, leaving the glittering spires of the Illyrian capital behind, Charles turned to Tara. Her eyes were wide with wonder as she watched her homeworld shrink in the viewport. He reached out and gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "Ready for a new adventure?" he asked. Tara turned to him, a smile playing on her alien features. "With you by my side, always." The ship accelerated, carrying them towards Earth and the unknown challenges that awaited them there. As the stars streaked by outside, Charles couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was just beginning, and that the true test of their bond and the future of interstellar diplomacy lay ahead. Ahead. As the stars streaked by outside, Charles couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was just beginning, and that the true test of their bond and the future of interstellar diplomacy lay ahead. Their arrival on Earth was a whirlwind of activity. Crowds gathered to catch a glimpse of the first Illyrian to set foot on human soil, and the media frenzy was unlike anything Charles had ever experienced. Through it all, he remained steadfastly by Tara's side, guiding her through the cacophony of sights, sounds, and sensations that assaulted her alien senses. As the days passed, Charles and Tara found themselves at the center of a cultural exchange program spearheaded by Dr. Marcus Chen, a renowned xenoanthropologist. The project aimed to foster a deeper understanding between humans and Illyrians, with a particular focus on the controversial pleasure pet custom. One afternoon, as they entered Dr. Chen's state-of-the-art research facility, Charles noticed an unusual tension in the air. The scientist greeted them with awe-inspiring excitement. "Ambassador Simmons, Tara, thank you for coming," Dr. Chen said, leading them to a room filled with sleek, unfamiliar equipment. Today, we're going to try something revolutionary. Charles raised an eyebrow. What exactly did you have in mind, Doctor? Dr. Chen gestured to two reclined chairs surrounded by a web of sensors and projectors. A virtual reality simulation designed to recreate Illyrian environments and social situations. It's the closest we can get to experiencing your world firsthand, Tara. Tara's eyes widened with curiosity. Fascinating. And you believe this will help humans understand our customs better? That's the hope, Dr. Chen nodded. Are you both willing to participate? Charles and Tara exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. After a moment, they both agreed. As they settled into the chairs, Dr. Chen's team attached various sensors to their bodies. The simulation will begin with a recreation of the Kelthora ritual, the scientist explained. We believe it's an ideal starting point for our cultural exchange efforts. The world around them shimmered and dissolved, replaced by the familiar crystal spires of the Illyrian temple. Charles felt a rush of déjà vu as the hauntingly beautiful music filled the air. He turned to see Tara beside him, her iridescent skin glowing in the alien light. As they began the intricate steps of the Kelthora dance, Charles was struck by how real everything felt. The warmth of Tara's hand in his, the subtle scent of Illyrian incense, the weight of the ceremonial robes on his shoulders. It was all there, vivid and immediate. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the rest of the simulated world faded away. It was just the two of them, moving in perfect synchronization, their bodies and minds in harmony. Without conscious thought, Charles leaned in, his lips meeting Tara's in a tender kiss. The kiss deepened, years of unspoken attraction and growing affection pouring out in a single passionate moment. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. Charles, Tara whispered, her alien features softened with emotion. I've wanted to do that for so long. So have I, Charles admitted, cupping her face gently. The simulation faded, leaving them back in Dr. Chen's lab. As they disconnected from the equipment, Charles noticed an odd expression on one of the technicians' faces, a mix of surprise and what looked almost like triumph. Before he could ponder it further, Dr. Chen approached, his face beaming. Incredible data, simply incredible. Thank you both for your participation. We'll need some time to analyze the results, but I believe this will be a significant breakthrough in our understanding of Illyrian customs. As they left the lab, Charles couldn't shake a nagging feeling of unease. Something about the technician's expression troubled him, but he pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on the warmth of Tara's hand in his as they walked. The next morning, Charles awoke to the insistent beeping of his communication device. Groggily, he activated the screen, only to feel his blood run cold at the headlines scrolling across it. Leaked, human ambassador and Illyrian envoy in intimate encounter. Scandal rocks, Earth-Illyria relations. Activists decry exploitation in alien pleasure. Pet custom. Attached was a video file, a perfect recording of his and Tara's kiss in the virtual reality simulation. Charles's mind raced. How had this happened? Who could have accessed and leaked the footage? As he scrambled to contact his superiors and damage control teams, a chilling realization struck him. This was only the beginning of a storm that threatened to tear apart everything he and Tara had worked for. Across the city, in a nondescript apartment, Zara watched the chaos unfold with a satisfied smirk. Phase 1 of her plan was complete. Now it was time to turn up the heat and truly test the limits of human-Illyrian relations. Zara's smirk faded as she watched the news unfold. The leak had caused the desired uproar, but something was off. The public's reaction was more nuanced than she had anticipated. Cursing under her breath, she reached for her communication device, ready to set the next phase of her plan in motion. Meanwhile, Charles stared at the screen, his mind racing. He needed to act fast. With shaking hands, he dialed Tara's number. "Tara, have you seen the news?" he asked, his voice tight with urgency. "I have," she replied, her usually melodious voice tinged with worry. "Charles, what do we do?" Before he could respond, a priority message flashed across his screen. His presence was required immediately for an emergency meeting with Earth's diplomatic corps. Charles felt his stomach drop. "I have to go," he said to Tara. "Stay safe. I'll contact you as soon as I can." As Charles hurried to prepare for the meeting, his secure communication device chirped. A message from an unknown sender appeared. "Ambassador Simmons, we need to talk. Zara isn't who she claims to be. Meet me at the old observatory in 1 hour. Come alone. An Illyrian friend." Charles hesitated, weighing his options. The timing was suspicious, but he couldn't ignore the possibility of crucial information. Making a split-second decision, he sent a coded message to his security team and headed for the observatory. The abandoned building loomed before him, its once gleaming dome now dulled with age. As Charles approached, a figure emerged from the shadows. He recognized the Illyrian immediately. It was Krell, a junior member of the Illyrian delegation. "Ambassador," Krell said, his voice barely above a whisper, "what I'm about to tell you puts my life at risk. Zara is part of a radical faction within our government. They believe that closer ties with humans will dilute our culture and weaken our species. The leak, the attacks, it's all part of their plan to sabotage the alliance." Charles listened intently, his mind piecing together the puzzle. "Thank you, Krell. This information could save lives. Is there anything else?" Krell hesitated, then nodded. "Zara has been tasked with getting close to you. Be careful, Ambassador. She's more dangerous than you know." As Charles rushed to his diplomatic meeting, he formulated a plan. He would confront Zara directly, but on his terms. Using his official channels, he arranged a private meeting with her to discuss the cultural exchange program. The next day, Charles entered the designated meeting room, his heart pounding. Zara was already there, a predatory smile on her face. "Ambassador Simmons," she purred, her voice silky smooth. "I'm so glad we could meet privately. Recent events must have been stressful for you." Charles kept his expression neutral. "Indeed, I appreciate your concern, Zara. Shall we discuss the cultural exchange program?" As they talked, Zara gradually moved closer, her body language shifting from professional to seductive. Charles felt a bead of sweat form on his brow as he activated the hidden recording device in his pocket. "You know, Charles," Zara said, her voice low and intimate, "we could do great things together. Why limit yourself to one Illyrian when you could experience so much more?" Her hand brushed his arm and Charles tensed. "I'm flattered, Zara, but I'm committed to Tara and our work together." Zara's eyes flashed with anger, her seductive facade crumbling. "You fool, do you have any idea what's at stake? Your precious Tara and your abomination of a child will be the downfall of both our species." Charles's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" Zara laughed bitterly. "Did you think your little secret would stay hidden forever? We know about the pregnancy, Charles, and we've developed a weapon to ensure it never happens again. A bioweapon designed to target human Illyrian hybrids. Your child won't survive, and neither will any other monstrous creation like it." As Zara ranted, Charles surreptitiously ended the recording. He had what he needed, but the threat to Tara and their unborn child sent a chill down his spine. Across the city, Tara lay on an examination table in Dr. Chen's lab, surrounded by a team of human and Illyrian scientists. The air hummed with excitement and tension as they conducted test after test. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as he studied the results. "This is unprecedented," he breathed. "Tara, your body has undergone a remarkable adaptation. Your reproductive system has altered itself to be compatible with human DNA. The implications are staggering." Tara sat up, her iridescent skin shimmering with a mix of fear and hope. "What does this mean, Doctor?" "It means," Dr. Chen said, his voice filled with awe, "that your child could be the key to a new era of human-Illyrian relations. The potential benefits, disease resistance, environmental adaptability, are beyond anything we've imagined." As Tara absorbed this information, Charles burst into the lab, his face etched with worry. "Tara, Dr. Chen, we have a situation. The pregnancy has been leaked, and there's a faction threatening our child's life." The room fell silent as Charles recounted his meeting with Zara and the bioweapon threat. Dr. Chen's team immediately began discussing potential countermeasures, while Tara reached for Charles's hand. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Before Charles could answer, his communication device chimed. It was a message from the Illyrian government, marked urgent. As he read it, his eyes widened. "They're proposing a public ceremony," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. "A diplomatic union between us, officially recognized by both governments. It could change everything." Tara's grip on his hand tightened. "But—" Charles took a deep breath. "But I'd have to undergo a modified version of the Illyrian bonding process. It's risky, potentially dangerous. It would link us empathically, prove my commitment to Illyrian customs." As they grappled with this new development, alarms blared throughout the facility. Dr. Chen rushed to a nearby screen, his face paling as he read the incoming reports. "Multiple attacks on joint human-Illyrian facilities across the galaxy," he said, his voice shaking. "Casualties reported. It's Zara's faction. They're trying to sever diplomatic ties permanently." Charles straightened, his teeth clenched. He knew what he had to do. "Dr. Chen, I need a secure channel for a galaxy-wide broadcast. It's time to bring everything into the light." As the channel was prepared, Charles turned to Tara. "Are you with me?" he asked softly. Tara nodded, her eyes shining with trust and love. "Always." Together they stepped in front of the camera, ready to address a galaxy on the brink of war and change the course of human-Illyrian relations forever. As Charles and Tara faced the camera, the weight of their responsibility settled upon them. With a deep breath, Charles began their address, his voice steady and resolute. "People of Earth and Illyria, we come to you in a time of crisis. The attacks on our joint facilities are not random acts of violence, but a coordinated effort to destroy the peace we've worked so hard to build." Tara continued, her melodious voice carrying a note of urgency. "We've uncovered a plot to sabotage our alliance, orchestrated by those who fear change and progress. But we stand before you today as living proof that our two species can not only coexist, but thrive together." As they spoke, Charles felt a surge of persistence. He knew what he had to do next. "To demonstrate our commitment to this alliance, I have agreed to undergo the Illyrian bonding process with Tara. It's a dangerous procedure, but one that will unite us in ways previously thought impossible." The broadcast concluded, and Charles turned to Dr. Chen. "How soon can we begin the bonding?" Dr. Chen's eyes widened. "Ambassador, are you certain? The risks are necessary," Charles finished. "We don't have time to waste." Within hours, Charles found himself in a specially prepared chamber, surrounded by a mix of human and Illyrian technology. The air hummed with energy, and the scent of ozone filled his nostrils. Tara lay on an adjacent platform, connected to him through a web of glowing conduits. As the Illyrian scientists made their final preparations, Charles felt a flutter of fear in his stomach. He pushed it aside, focusing instead on Tara's reassuring presence. The procedure began with a series of injections. Charles gritted his teeth as the alien compounds coursed through his veins, bringing waves of discomfort. His skin felt too tight, his bones ached, and his vision blurred. "Charles," Tara's voice echoed in his mind. "I'm here. Focus on me." He latched onto her voice like a lifeline as the chamber filled with pulsating energy fields. The world around him dissolved into a kaleidoscope of color and sensation. Charles felt as if his consciousness was expanding, stretching beyond the confines of his body. Suddenly, he was no longer in the chamber. He stood in a vast crystalline city, its spires reaching impossibly high into an alien sky. He recognized it as Tara's homeworld, though he had never seen it before. He felt her memories wash over him. The joy of her first flight, the solemnity of ancient rituals, the wonder of discovering new worlds. In turn, Tara experienced flashes of Earth's history. She saw great pyramids rising from the desert, felt the rumble of rockets launching into space, heard the roar of crowds celebrating moments of triumph and unity. As their minds merged, Charles and Tara reached a level of understanding that transcended words. They saw the potential for a future where their species worked together, their strengths complementing each other's weaknesses. The vision was shattered by a jolt of pain. Charles convulsed, his body arching off the platform. Through their mental link, he felt Tara's panic. Something's wrong, her thoughts rang out. The equipment... Charles forced his eyes open, fighting against the pain. Through the haze, he saw figures in dark clothing surrounding the chamber. Zara's faction had breached the facility. As alarms blared and security forces engaged the intruders, Charles felt his connection to Terra weaken. His heart raced, knowing that an interruption at this stage could be catastrophic. Tara's presence in his mind surged, her will imposing itself on their shared consciousness. "Hold on, Charles. I won't let you go." Using their newfound mental link, Tara poured her strength into Charles, stabilizing his condition. The Illyrian scientists looked on in amazement, having never seen such a display of interspecies synchronicity. Outside the chamber, the situation escalated. Dr. Chen, trapped in his lab by the facility lockdown, stared at the unfinished bioweapon countermeasure. With Zara's team closing in and time running out, he made a desperate decision. Taking a deep breath, Dr. Chen injected himself with the partially completed formula. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a rush of clarity swept through his mind. Ideas and connections formed at lightning speed, his thoughts racing ahead of conscious control. Back in the bonding chamber, Charles and Tara's mental connection reached its zenith. Their shared consciousness expanded, touching the minds of nearby Illyrians. For a brief moment, they all experienced the vision of a harmonious future. Human and Illyrian children playing together, joint scientific breakthroughs, a galaxy at peace. As the bonding procedure concluded, Charles and Tara opened their eyes, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. They looked at each other, a wordless understanding passing between them. "I can hear your thoughts," Charles said, his voice barely above a whisper. Tara nodded, her iridescent skin glowing with a new intensity. "And I yours. We are truly one now." Their moment of peace was short-lived. The sounds of conflict outside the chamber grew louder, and they knew they had to act. Using their new telepathic ability, they formulated a plan. As they exited the chamber, they moved in perfect synchronization. Security forces, initially startled by their presence, quickly fell into step with them as Charles and Tara communicated tactics silently. They made their way through the facility, outmaneuvering Zara's team at every turn. Their unprecedented teamwork demonstrated the potential of human Illyrian cooperation in ways that no diplomatic agreement ever could. But Zara wasn't finished. Realizing her plan was unraveling, she activated a hidden device. A fine mist began to seep through the facility's ventilation system, the anti-hybrid bioweapon, now airborne and spreading rapidly. Charles and Tara shared a look of horror, their thoughts aligned. Their child was in danger, and with it, the future they had glimpsed. They turned as one, racing towards Dr. Chen's lab, and the hope of a countermeasure. As they ran, they felt a subtle shift in the air around them. The bioweapon was spreading, its invisible tendrils reaching out to threaten everything they had fought for. Time was running out, and the fate of two species hung in the balance. Ahead lay Dr. Chen's lab, their last hope for salvation. Behind them, Zara and her faction closed in, determined to see their plan through to its bitter end. Charles and Tara pressed on, their newly forged bond giving them strength. The real battle was just beginning. Charles and Tara pressed forward, their minds intertwined as they navigated the chaos-filled corridors of the facility. The air grew thick with the invisible threat of the bioweapon, but their tenacity remained unshaken. As they rounded a corner, a group of Zara's faction members ambushed them. Without a word spoken between them, Charles dropped low while Tara vaulted over his back, her iridescent skin shimmering as she launched into a spinning kick that sent two attackers sprawling. Charles swept the legs out from under another, his movements perfectly timed with Tara's aerial maneuver. Their unprecedented synchronization caught their opponents off guard. Charles's strategic mind anticipated each move, while Tara's Illyrian combat techniques flowed through their shared consciousness. They moved as one, ducking, weaving, and striking with lethal precision. "Left!" Tara's thought rang out in Charles' mind. He instinctively dodged as an energy blast seared past his ear, singeing the wall behind him. Charles retaliated by grabbing a nearby fire extinguisher and tossing it to Tara. She caught it mid-air, using her superior strength to hurl it at their attacker. The canister exploded in a cloud of suppressant, disorienting the remaining faction members long enough for Charles and Tara to slip past. They sprinted down the hallway, their footsteps echoing in unison. The ventilation system hummed ominously above them, carrying the invisible threat of the bioweapon throughout the facility. "We're close," Charles thought, the layout of the facility clear in his mind, thanks to their shared knowledge. As they approached Dr. Chen's lab, they encountered a sealed security door. Tara placed her hand on the biometric scanner, but it flashed red, denying access. "The system's in lockdown," Tara said, her frustration evident in both her voice and her thoughts. Charles' mind raced, sifting through possible solutions. His eyes landed on an access panel nearby. "Cover me," he thought to Tara as he pried open the panel and began rewiring the circuits. Tara took up a defensive stance, her heightened senses alert for any approaching danger. Through their link, Charles felt her tension, the way her muscles coiled, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. With a final adjustment, the door slid open with a hiss. They rushed inside to find Dr. Chen slumped over his workstation, barely conscious. The scientist's eyes were unfocused, his breathing labored. "Dr. Chen!" Charles called out, rushing to his side. Tara quickly scanned the room, locating the countermeasure formula displayed on a nearby screen. As Charles helped Dr. Chen to his feet, the scientist's words came out in a jumbled rush. "The formula! I've transmitted Earth and Illyria. They know." Tara's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. "He's ensured the countermeasure won't be lost, even if we fail here." Charles nodded, a glimmer of hope rising in his chest. He turned his attention to the air filtration system controls, his fingers flying over the interface as he input the necessary commands to distribute the countermeasure. A soft hum filled the room as the facility's ventilation system kicked into high gear, dispersing the life-saving formula throughout the building. Charles and Tara shared a moment of relief, but it was short-lived. An alarm blared, and a holographic display flickered to life, showing a small spacecraft preparing for launch in the docking bay. "Zara," they said in unison, their shared consciousness immediately grasping the gravity of the situation. Leaving Dr. Chen in the care of the medical team that had just arrived, Charles and Tara raced towards the docking bay. Their minds worked in tandem, formulating strategies and contingencies as they ran. They burst into the cavernous docking area just as Zara was about to board her escape vessel. The Illyrian turned, her face contorted with rage and desperation. "It's over, Zara," Charles called out, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Zara's hand moved to her belt, extracting a small, pulsating device. "You think you've won?" she snarled. "You have no idea what you've started." Before Charles or Tara could react, Zara activated the device. A wave of excruciating pain washed over them, driving them to their knees. Their mental link wavered, threatening to snap under the assault of the disruptor. Through the haze of agony, Charles saw Zara making a break for her ship. With a Herculean effort, he lunged forward, tackling her to the ground. The disruptor skittered across the floor, its pulsing red light casting an eerie glow on the polished surface. Tara, fighting through the lingering pain, scrambled to secure the bioweapon container that Zara had dropped in the scuffle. As she did, Charles and Zara grappled on the ground, each struggling for dominance. In the chaos, Zara's elbow struck the fallen disruptor. A shower of sparks erupted from the device, accompanied by a high-pitched whine that set Charles's teeth on edge. Suddenly, the pain in his head vanished, replaced by an overwhelming surge of sensation. His mind exploded with clarity, every synapse firing at once. He was aware of Tara in a way he'd never experienced before, her thoughts and memories cascading through his consciousness like a torrent of information. For a brief, eternal moment, Charles and Tara were one being, their separate identities blurring into a singular entity of human and Illyrian fusion. They moved with perfect coordination, subduing Zara with a flurry of strikes that combined Charles's strategic precision with Tara's alien grace. As quickly as it had come, the moment of transcendent unity faded. Charles and Tara found themselves standing over unconscious Zara, both breathing heavily as they tried to process what had just occurred. Security forces flooded into the docking bay, securing Zara and the bioweapon. Charles and Tara leaned against each other, physically and mentally exhausted. "Are you okay?" Charles asked, his voice hoarse. Tara nodded, her iridescent skin pulsing with an intensity he'd never seen before. "I am. But Charles, what just happened to us?" Before he could respond, a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. Dr. Chen, looking haggard but determined, pushed his way through the crowd of security personnel. "Ambassador Tara," he called out, his eyes wide with excitement and trepidation. "We need to run some tests immediately. What you've just experienced, it could change everything." As they followed Dr. Chen back to his lab, Charles and Tara became aware of strange new sensations coursing through their bodies. Their bond felt different, altered in ways they couldn't yet understand. Their moment of triumph was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Joint Human-Illyrian Council. The message was clear. They were to return immediately to face an inquiry that would determine the future of interspecies relations. Charles and Tara exchanged a look, knowing that their greatest challenge still lay ahead. As they prepared to face the political firestorm awaiting them, they couldn't shake the feeling that the physiological changes they were experiencing were just the beginning of something far more profound and potentially world-altering. Revolutionary. As their ship docked at the Joint Human-Illyrian Council headquarters, Charles and Tara shared a moment of apprehension. The physical changes they had experienced since their bonding were becoming more pronounced with each passing hour. Charles caught his reflection in a polished panel, noting the subtle iridescence that now shimmered across his skin. He turned to Tara, whose eyes had taken on a distinctly human-like quality, their alien luminescence now tempered with a warm, earthy hue. "Ready?" he asked, his voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. Tara nodded, her hand instinctively moving to her abdomen. "As will ever be." They stepped into the council chamber, a vast amphitheater filled with representatives from both species. The air crackled with tension as all eyes turned to them. Charles felt a wave of emotions wash over him, curiosity, fear, and suspicion radiating from the assembled delegates. The inquiry began with a stern-faced human counselor addressing them. "Ambassador Charles, Tara of Illyria, you stand before this council to account for your actions and the unprecedented events that have followed. Let us begin with your initial meeting." As Charles opened his mouth to respond, he felt Tara's thoughts brush against his consciousness. Their residual mental link, while not as intense as before, allowed them to coordinate their responses with uncanny precision. "Counselor," Charles began, his words echoing Tara's thoughts, "our meeting was a product of the cultural exchange program initiated to foster understanding between our species." Tara seamlessly continued, "We found common ground in our shared passion for xenobiology and diplomatic relations." Their alternating responses flowed naturally, impressing the council with their unity and shared perspective. As they recounted the circumstances of Tara's pregnancy and the subsequent events at the research facility, Charles noticed a shift in the room's atmosphere. The initial suspicion began to give way to a grudging respect for their honesty and cohesion. Midway through their testimony, a young aide burst into the chamber, her face flushed with urgency. She whispered hurriedly to the head counselor, whose eyes widened with each passing second. The counselor raised a hand, silencing the murmurs that had begun to ripple through the assembly. "We have received reports of a most alarming nature. It appears that physiological changes similar to those experienced by Ambassador Charles and Tara are occurring in humans and Illyrians across various colonies where our species cohabit." The chamber erupted into chaos. Shouts of disbelief and fear echoed off the vaulted ceiling as delegates demanded explanations. Charles and Tara exchanged a glance, their shared thoughts a mix of concern and curiosity. "Silence!" The head counselor's voice boomed through the chamber. "We are summoning Dr. Chen to provide his expertise on this matter." As if on cue, Dr. Chen entered the chamber, his face a mask of excitement and trepidation. He approached the central podium, his eyes darting between Charles and Tara before addressing the council. "Esteemed delegates," he began, his voice steady despite the tension in the room, "what we are witnessing is nothing short of evolutionary history in the making. I have dubbed this phenomenon the convergence effect." Dr. Chen's holographic displays flickered to life, showing cellular structures and DNA strands in vibrant detail. The intense bonding experience between Ambassador Charles and Tara has triggered a cascade of evolutionary adaptations in both species. Prolonged exposure between humans and Illyrians is accelerating genetic modifications at an unprecedented rate. The implications of his words sank in, and the chamber once again dissolved into heated debate. Some delegates saw the convergence effect as a threat to the purity of their species, while others recognized it as an unparalleled opportunity for advancement. As arguments raged around them, Charles felt a sudden spike of alarm through his link with Tara. Her eyes were fixed on a data feed scrolling across a nearby screen. Charles, she thought to him, Zara's faction. They're using this chaos to their advantage. Before Charles could respond, the head counselor's voice cut through the din. We have received reports of coordinated attacks on mixed human Illyrian settlements. Zara's extremist faction is capitalizing on the fear and confusion caused by the convergence effect. The council's focus shifted abruptly from the inquiry to crisis management. Delegates scrambled to contact their respective colonies, seeking information and issuing orders. In the midst of the pandemonium, Charles stepped forward, his voice clear and resolute. Council members, Tara and I volunteer to lead a joint human-Illyrian task force to address this conflict. Tara moved to stand beside him, her presence a testament to their unity. Our unique bond and first-hand experience with the convergence effect make us ideally suited to bridge the growing divide between our species. The council members exchanged wary glances, weighing the proposal against the rapidly escalating crisis. After a tense moment, the head counselor nodded. Very well. We grant you emergency authority to deal with this situation. Your first priority is to quell the violence and prevent further loss of life. As Charles and Tara turned to leave, Dr. Chen approached them, his eyes alight with a mix of wonder and urgency. Before you go, there's something you need to know, he said, lowering his voice. My latest tests reveal that your child exhibits unprecedented genetic stability. It may hold the key to managing the convergence effect across both species. The weight of this revelation settled over Charles and Tara as they made their way to the docking bay. Their unborn child, already a symbol of their union, now represented hope for peaceful human-Illyrian relations in a galaxy on the brink of chaos. As they boarded their ship, Charles became aware of a strange tingling sensation at the base of his skull. He turned to Tara, noticing a faint glow emanating from a cut on her hand, which seemed to be healing at an accelerated rate. Are you feeling that? He asked, a mix of wonder and apprehension in his voice. Tara nodded, flexing her hand as the cut vanished completely. Our bodies are still changing, adapting. We're evolving, Charles. As their ship lifted off, its course set for a turbulent human-Illyrian mining colony, Charles and Tara stood side by side on the bridge. Through the view screen, the stars stretched into streaks of light as they entered hyperspace, carrying them towards their first challenge as mediators in a galaxy transformed by their union. As their ship entered the turbulent atmosphere of the mining colony's moon, Charles felt a strange tingling sensation at the base of his skull intensify. He turned to Tara, noticing her brow furrowed in concentration. Are you feeling it too? He asked, his voice barely audible over the ship's engines. Tara nodded, her eyes scanning the approaching lunar landscape. It's like I can sense the unrest below us. As they began their descent, the colony came into view. The stark contrast between the sleek, modern human structures and the organic, bioluminescent Illyrian dwellings was immediately apparent. But more striking were the signs of recent conflict. Scorched buildings, makeshift barricades, and groups of colonists huddled in defensive formations. The moment their ship touched down, Charles's newly developed ability to sense electromagnetic fields flared to life. His mind was suddenly awash with information, a three-dimensional map of energy signatures flooding his consciousness. Tara, he said urgently, grabbing her arm, there are weapons caches hidden throughout the colony, at least a dozen, maybe more. Tara's eyes widened, the warm, earthy hue they had taken on since the bonding incident now glowing with concern. We need to move quickly. I can already sense the pain and fear emanating from the colonists. As they disembarked, the couple's appearance drew immediate attention. Humans and Illyrians alike stopped in their tracks, staring at Charles's iridescent skin and Tara's human-like eyes. Whispers rippled through the crowd, a mix of awe and suspicion. A group of injured colonists stumbled towards them, a mix of humans and Illyrians supporting each other. Without hesitation, Tara moved to meet them, her hands already glowing with the soft light of her enhanced regenerative abilities. As Tara tended to the wounded, Charles approached the colony's leaders, who had gathered near the landing pad. He could feel the tension radiating from them, their electromagnetic signatures pulsing with anxiety and mistrust. "I'm Ambassador Charles," he began, his diplomatic training kicking in despite the strange sensations coursing through his body. "We're here to help mediate the situation and find a peaceful resolution." The human leader, a gruff man with a miner's build, scoffed. "And how exactly do you plan to do that? Look at you. You're not even fully human anymore." The Illyrian leader, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with agitation, added, "And your mate is no longer purely Illyrian. How can we trust you to understand our concerns?" Charles took a deep breath, feeling Tara's calming presence through their mental link. "It's precisely because of our unique position that we can help. We understand both sides in a way no one else can. Please let us arrange a meeting between your factions. We need to start a dialogue before this situation escalates further." As the leaders begrudgingly agreed to the meeting, a commotion erupted near one of the colony's central hubs. Charles's electromagnetic sense flared, detecting a surge of activity in a nearby building. "Tara," he called out mentally, "something's happening at the life support center." Without a word, Tara finished healing the last of the injured colonists and joined Charles as they raced towards the building. As they approached, Charles's ability allowed him to navigate through the complex machinery, identifying the source of the disturbance. "There," he pointed, guiding Tara through a maze of pipes and conduits. "Someone's trying to sabotage the air filtration system." They burst into a dimly lit control room, surprising a group of extremists in the midst of their sabotage attempt. Charles's heightened senses allowed him to duck under a wild swing from one of the saboteurs, while Tara's increased strength in the low-gravity environment gave her the advantage in subduing another. Working in perfect tandem, their complementary abilities allowing them to cover each other's blind spots, Charles and Tara neutralized the threat. As colony security forces arrived to apprehend the extremists, the couple stood amid the sparking control panels, their actions having prevented a potential catastrophe. Word of their heroism spread quickly through the colony, earning them a measure of trust from both humans and Illyrians. As they made their way back to the central plaza, where the leaders were gathering for the negotiation, Charles and Tara could feel the shift in attitude towards them. The human leader approached them, his earlier skepticism replaced by grudging respect. "I may not understand what's happening to you two, but I can't deny you just saved a lot of lives. We're ready to talk." As they entered the negotiation chamber, Charles felt a sudden wave of dizziness. He looked down at his hands, noticing a subtle change in the iridescence of his skin. Beside him, Tara stumbled slightly, her eyes glowing more intensely than before. "Charles," she whispered, her voice tinged with a mix of wonder and apprehension, "I think we're still changing." Before Charles could respond, an urgent message flashed across the room's holographic display. Dr. Chen's face appeared, his expression a mixture of excitement and concern. "Ambassador Tara," he began, his words rushed, "I've made a breakthrough in my research on the convergence effect. It's not just affecting you two and your child, it's spreading to all humans and Illyrians in close proximity to each other, and it's accelerating. The changes you're experiencing now, they're just the beginning." As Dr. Chen's words sank in, Charles and Tara exchanged a look of grit. The fate of human-Illyrian relations now rested on their shoulders, and their own evolving bodies were at the center of it all. With the colony leaders waiting and the threat of further violence looming, they stepped forward to begin the most crucial negotiation of their lives, their own transformation a living testament to the changes sweeping across both species. With the colony leaders waiting and the threat of further violence looming, they stepped forward to begin the most crucial negotiation of their lives, their own transformation a living testament to the changes sweeping across both species. As Charles opened his mouth to address the assembled leaders, a piercing alarm cut through the tense atmosphere. His newly enhanced senses immediately detected a surge of electromagnetic activity outside the colony's perimeter. "Multiple ships incoming," he announced, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "We need to implement emergency security measures immediately." The colony leaders exchanged alarmed glances, their earlier animosity momentarily forgotten in the face of this new threat. Charles's mind raced, processing the influx of sensory information while formulating a plan. "Tara, can you sense anything about the approaching vessels?" he asked through their mental link. Tara closed her eyes, her brow furrowing in concentration. "I'm picking up a mix of emotions. Fear, anger, and something else. It's like a collective purpose, but distorted somehow." As the colony's defense system sprang to life, Charles coordinated with the security teams, using his electromagnetic sensing ability to guide their deployment. Tara, meanwhile, focused on calming the growing panic among the colonists, her empathic abilities soothing frayed nerves and preventing outbreaks of violence. Suddenly, Tara doubled over, clutching her abdomen. Charles was at her side in an instant, supporting her as she straightened up, her eyes wide with a mix of wonder and alarm. "The baby," she gasped. "It's growing, faster than before." Before Charles could respond, Dr. Chen's holographic image materialized before them, his expression a mix of excitement and concern. "The convergence effect is accelerating," he explained rapidly. "The concentration of mixed-species individuals in the colony is acting as a catalyst. It's not just affecting you two anymore. It's spreading to other human Illyrian couples in close proximity." As if to underscore his words, a commotion erupted nearby. A human miner stumbled into view, his skin flickering with faint bioluminescent patterns. Next to him, his Illyrian partner shivered, steam rising from her skin as she displayed a newfound resistance to the moon's frigid atmosphere. Panic rippled through the gathered colonists. Shouts of fear and anger filled the air as some demanded segregation, while others called for unity in the face of these unprecedented changes. Charles and Tara worked tirelessly to maintain order, their unique abilities proving crucial in preventing outbreaks of violence. Charles used his electromagnetic sense to detect and confiscate hidden weapons, while Tara's empathic abilities helped diffuse tense confrontations before they could escalate. As the crisis deepened, a new ship arrived, its design unlike anything Charles had ever seen, a sleek fusion of human and Illyrian technology. The vessel's hatch opened, revealing a group of individuals who appeared to be neither fully human nor Illyrian, but something in between. Their leader, a tall figure with iridescent skin and bioluminescent eyes, stepped forward. "I am Zix," he announced, his voice carrying a strange harmonic quality. "We are the evolved, the next step in both our species' evolution. We've come to offer you a vision of a fully integrated future." The colonists' reactions were immediate and polarized. Some viewed the newcomers with awe and hope, while others recoiled in fear and disgust. Charles and Tara exchanged a wary glance, sensing the delicate balance they'd worked so hard to maintain, teetering on the brink of chaos. As Zix began to address the crowd, expounding on the benefits of embracing the convergence effect, Charles's electromagnetic sense flared with alarm. He detected a surge of activity near the colony's main life support systems. "Tara," he communicated mentally, "Zara's faction is making their move. They're attacking the life support hub." Without hesitation, Charles assembled a defense team, using his abilities to coordinate their response. Tara, despite her advancing pregnancy, moved to protect the most vulnerable colonists, her enhanced strength and regenerative capabilities proving invaluable. The attack was fierce but short-lived. Charles's team, guided by his precise sensory input, outmaneuvered the extremists at every turn. Tara's protective barrier, a shimmering field of energy that seemed to pulse in sync with her accelerated heartbeat, deflected the worst of the assault. In the aftermath, as the colonists worked to repair the damage, Charles made a startling discovery. His electromagnetic sense detected a hidden signal emanating from the evolved ship. Probing deeper, He uncovered evidence of advanced technology being used to artificially accelerate and control the convergence effect. Before he could fully process this revelation, Tara's voice echoed in his mind, tinged with a mixture of excitement and fear. "Charles," she called, "it's time. The baby's coming." As Charles rushed to Tara's side, the colony held its collective breath. The birth of this hybrid child, conceived in the early stages of the convergence effect, had become a pivotal moment for both species. Dr. Chen's hologram flickered to life once more, his instruments detecting unprecedented energy readings from both Tara and the newborn. The moment of birth triggered a wave of energy that washed over the colony, temporarily intensifying the convergence effect in all inhabitants. Humans and Illyrians alike gasped as they felt their bodies changing, genetic alterations that had been gradual, suddenly accelerating. As the energy wave subsided, a strange calm settled over the colony. The more extreme mutations had stabilized, bringing both humans and Illyrians to a similar level of genetic alteration. In that moment of shared transformation, the divisions that had seemed so insurmountable began to fade. Zix, seeing his plans for controlled evolution disrupted, moved to seize control of the colony in the ensuing chaos. But Charles, empowered by the recent events and his strengthened bond with Tara, stood ready to confront him. As they faced each other, the newborn hybrid child in Tara's arms began to glow, creating a localized field that nullified both Charles and Zix's enhanced capabilities. Forced into a stalemate, the two leaders found themselves compelled to perseverance their conflict through dialogue rather than violence. As they began to speak, the colonists gathered around, their shared experience of transformation creating a newfound willingness to listen and understand. The confrontation between Charles and Zix, once poised to tear the colony apart, now held the potential to forge a new path forward. As the discussion unfolded, the implications of the convergence effect and the revelations about its artificial acceleration hung in the air, unanswered questions that would shape the future of human-Illyrian relations across the galaxy. As the tense standoff between Charles and Zix dissolved, a new sensation washed over the assembled crowd. The newborn child in Tara's arms began to emit a soft, pulsating glow that spread outward in gentle waves. The effect was immediate and profound. Colonists who had been on the brink of violence moments before found their anger melting away, replaced by a sense of calm clarity. Humans and Illyrians alike felt their racing thoughts slow, allowing for a deeper understanding of the situation and each other's perspectives. Charles blinked, his electromagnetic sense detecting a subtle shift in the energy field surrounding them. He turned to Tara, who was gazing down at their child with a mixture of awe and wonder. "What's happening?" he asked softly. Tara looked up, her eyes shimmering with newly formed tears. "It's incredible. I can feel everyone's emotions, but they're not overwhelming anymore. It's like our baby is creating a field of harmony." As if in response to its mother's words, the infant cooed softly, sending another wave of soothing energy through the colony. Charles watched in amazement as the tensions that had threatened to tear their community apart began to dissipate. Dr. Chen's hologram flickered to life once more, his face alight with excitement. "Fascinating. The child appears to be emitting a type of psychic field that's stabilizing the genetic changes in both humans and Illyrians. Moreover, it seems to be enhancing cognitive functions across the board. This is unprecedented." Over the next few hours, as the colony settled into this new state of enhanced understanding, Charles and Tara observed the profound effects their child was having on everyone around them. Humans and Illyrians who had been at odds found common ground, engaging in thoughtful discussions rather than heated arguments. As night fell on the colony, Charles and Tara sat in a quiet corner of the medical bay, their newborn sleeping peacefully between them. They had named her Nova, a fitting moniker for a child born amidst such cosmic change. "We can't keep this to ourselves," Tara said softly, running a finger along Nova's cheek. "Think of how many lives could be changed, how many conflicts could be grit." Charles nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. "You're right, but it's a big galaxy out there, with a lot of deep-seated mistrust between our species. It won't be easy." Tara's eyes met his, filled with tenacity. "Since when has easy ever been our style?" The next morning, Charles and Tara called a meeting with the colony's leaders, including Zix and the Evolved. As they explained their plan for a galaxy-wide tour with Nova, reactions were mixed. "It's too dangerous," one human official argued. "You'll be putting yourselves and the child at risk." Zix, however, saw the potential. This could be the key to true integration, he mused, his earlier hostility replaced by genuine interest. As the debate raged on, Nova stirred in Tara's arms. The moment the child opened its eyes, a wave of calm swept through the room. The arguing ceased, replaced by thoughtful silence. Charles stepped forward, his voice steady. "We understand your concerns, but Nova's gift is too important to keep hidden away. We have a chance to make real, lasting change. We have to try." In the end, the decision was made. Charles and Tara would embark on their journey, accompanied by a small security detail, and Dr. Chen, who would continue his research on the convergence effect. As they prepared to leave the colony, Charles couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. He looked at Tara, who was securing Nova in a specially designed carrier. "Ready for another adventure?" he asked with a smile. Tara grinned back, her eyes sparkling with the bioluminescence that had become a part of her. Always. Their first stop was a human Illyrian mining outpost on a distant moon, known for its frequent skirmishes between the two species. As their ship touched down, Charles could sense the electromagnetic tension in the air, a sure sign of brewing conflict. But the moment they stepped off the ship, Nova's influence began to spread. The gathered crowd, initially wary and hostile, fell silent as waves of calm understanding washed over them. Charles watched in amazement as humans and Illyrians, who had been at each other's throats moments before, began to engage in a civil conversation. He could see the subtle genetic changes taking place, bringing both species into a more harmonious balance. Tara, her empathic abilities enhanced by Nova's presence, moved through the crowd, offering words of comfort and understanding where needed. Charles used his electromagnetic sense to guide them safely, navigating potential hotspots of tension. As they worked their way through the outpost, Charles couldn't help but feel a sense of hope growing within him. This was just the beginning of their journey, but already he could see the profound impact they were having. As night fell on the alien moon, Charles and Tara stood at the edge of the outpost, looking out at the stars. Nova slept peacefully in Tara's arms, unaware of the monumental changes she was catalyzing across the galaxy. "One down," Charles said softly, taking Tara's free hand in his. Tara squeezed his hand, her skin glowing faintly in the starlight. "And a whole galaxy to go." As they turned back towards their ship, ready for the next leg of their journey, Charles felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path ahead would be challenging, but with Tara by his side and Nova lighting the way, he knew they were ready for whatever the universe had in store for them.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.